somebody had shared a ticket, standard traffic ticket, and it was for a misdemeanor for music too loud or amplified sound is what it's called in Michigan. And then it said in the notes, the cop put it in the notes, he said, for playing the song Fuck the Police.
Welcome to another episode of Cases Gone Wild, brought to you by me, Jon Marko, and Marko Law. I'm your host, Jon Marko. I've been doing this for about 2 decades. I'm a civil rights and employment lawyer, personal injury, and I've seen some of the craziest, wildest, most insane cases. And we're going to talk about them today with a very special guest that we have for you. Each episode, we bring you special guests and talk about these cases. If you like our show, please like us online, share us with your friends. Remember, you can watch us live on YouTube on a video feed. You can check us out on the Marko Law website. Today's episode, we have a very special guest, a friend, a colleague, Nick Somberg. Nick, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
What's up? Glad to be on.
Glad to have you, my man. And if you don't know Nick is an attorney who went to Oakland University and he graduated from Thomas Schooley Law School in 2015. He has kind of a prolific online presence. I think I met you online before I actually met you in real life, although I don't remember what I did yesterday. You know, it's hard to remember all those years ago. But you have taken on very public, sometimes controversial causes and always fought for what I would consider to be like the underdog against government overreach. Is that a fair, like, you fight for people's liberties and for their rights? Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, that's fair. Kind of like you, but against the government.
Yeah, and you do a lot of criminal defense. You represent people who've been accused of crimes. And we're going to talk today about some of the craziest, most trivial prosecutions that I've ever heard of. And it's going to be disturbing to people out there, I think, when they hear about the stupid things that our tax dollars are being wasted on prosecuting innocent people. But it happens. You're currently running for the United States House of Representatives in Michigan's 11th district. So this would be, you'll go to Washington, D.C. if you win, right?
That's right. I couldn't practice anymore.
You have to give up your practice?
I'd have to pass it to somebody, yes.
Dude, that's a huge sacrifice because I know that you represent the little guys and you're currently campaigning. I understand you have to go through a primary process and then you'll be on the ballot if that goes successful.
Yeah, I'm on the ballot currently. We have a primary that's August 4th, and then I'll be on the ballot November 5th for the presidential election.
And tell our viewers, what is your district for our viewers out there?
Yeah, the district, the 11th district is majority of Oakland County. So if you live in Oakland County, it's about a 90% chance that you can vote for me. It excludes Clarkston, Rochester Hills, Lake Orion, and then a little bit at the bottom for like Franklin, Beverly Hills. But otherwise at the main center area, east to west, is all in the district.
And why did you decide, that you want to run for Congress?
Yeah, like you said, I've always been fighting for the underdog and for people's rights and for the Constitution as a defense attorney. And I am really sick of seeing what's going on in our country, and people can't afford things. Our rulers are a bit ridiculous and out of touch. I think we need younger people in our generation to go in there and try to actually make some change.
Well, tell us about, obviously, you're a little bit about your practice and how some of the experiences you have shaped kind of your views and things. Because one thing that I have to say about you, Nick, is you're not scared of anybody and you won't back down, including standing up against very powerful governmental interests, which is most people kind of will cower and, give in because it's harder to stand up and fight. And I respect that because in my work, my civil rights work especially, I'm fighting powerful governmental entities, which can be kind of scary and overwhelming because they have the resources and stuff. So tell us a little bit about some of your experiences.
Yeah, sure. What you said, how do we meet? You said you think you followed me online first. We met in person, and I had followed you because I always thought you were a badass and had all these great cases. And then I found out that you followed me. I'm like, oh my God, Jon Marko follows me. Shit.
Yeah.
Because you're the man. You have some awesome cases. You know, I look up to you.
Thank you, Nick.
And you just have a sweet career.
Thank you, man. Well, I respect you, and I respect what you've done, and I respect your kind of courage, I think, to stand up.
So to answer that, I mean, I think that comes from, I do about 80-90% criminal defense. And, you know, there's defense attorneys that they say, well, I'm going to be a prosecutor first for 8 years and switch. And I think that's an advantage. I'm a defense attorney who will never be a prosecutor. And I'm not that person for that job. Growing up, I experienced the system firsthand. I basically was on probation for a while for, shoplifting and just getting in trouble at school and with my parents and things that were really probably could have been maintained in the family.
Yeah.
But when the government got involved, they just grab onto you and they don't let go.
They don't let go. And once you get sucked into that system, it's like a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
It's hard to get out,
Yeah.
especially if you don't have the knowledge, the resources, connections in high places.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult, and I experienced this firsthand, just how people are treated and how they're unfair. And at the end of law school, you got to be a public defender if you want in your third year before you're barred up. And I was at the Ann Arbor Public Defender Office, and you could pick what you wanted to go into. And I picked two areas: I picked felonies because I wanted the worst stuff, and juvenile law. And just to be pretty much fresh out of, you have your college, law school, but still I was a lawyer at 26. It was just so rewarding to go in and talk to kids that are, 15, 16, like about to be adults, say, hey, I see you. I've been in your shoes literally, and you can either go down path A or path B. Here's what they can lead to. And yeah, I've changed some kids' lives and turned them around. And I've just always wanted to fight for what's right. I guess injustice is just bother the shit out of me.
Yeah, that's right. And you and I kind of have, although different backstories, there's some similarities in how we got to where we are and what we do. And I've told, this is no secret. I've shared this and I've told juries this. I went to private school in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I got kicked out of school because I went to Catholic school. I was kicked out for kind of just not following the rules, listening, being just kind of a clowning around and being a problem child, so to speak. And I had to go to an inner city school, and I saw injustice firsthand. I saw people being treated and abused by authority. I saw all kinds of things, and I was a minority. And looking back, that was the best thing that ever happened to me because it gave me a conviction. And it helps me represent people who need help and who have been abused by the system now. And it gives I can say, look, I've seen it. I've been through it. It sounds like we have some similarities in that way.
Yeah, certainly.
So tell me about some of the craziest, stupidest, wildest prosecutions. Because first of all, for our listeners, I mean, the government has a tremendous amount of discretion and power.
Yes.
And if they want to get you, there's a lot of ways for them to get you.
Yes. And not only a tremendous amount of power, but one thing that are talking about in Congress and on the trail is that they have no consequences for anything. If you hurt some in the civil world, there's consequences, even for big companies, especially for big companies. If they hurt somebody, do something wrong. With the government, they can decide to charge you with a crime on extremely weak, flimsy evidence, cost you tens of thousands of dollars, ruin your life for years.
Your life.
And drag you through the mud. And then you win at trial and,
see you later. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
And same thing civilly.
Yeah.
Like, they're protected through governmental immunity laws, which we've talked about. It's almost impossible to sue the government.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. So when I first started practicing, I started posting online just about conservative stuff, libertarian stuff. When I was in law school, about the laws, about cases I would read. So I already had a pretty big following before I was even a lawyer. I'm an entrepreneur my whole life as well. I've had my own law firm from day one. I've never worked for anybody else or anything like that. And people would send me things. I don't even pay for advertising. Now I get cases every single day, and people send me cases all the time. And I was tagged on, somebody had shared a ticket, a standard traffic ticket, and it was for a misdemeanor for music too loud or amplified sound is what it's called in Michigan. And then it said in the notes, the cop put it in the notes, he said, for playing the song Fuck the Police.
Yeah, NWA.
And
famous song, NWA. For our listeners that don't know, who aren't old enough, that was one of the first 90s rap songs, you know.
Yeah.
Or maybe even late 80s, I forget. But yeah. NWA, right?
NWA. And, you know, I'm friends with a lot of police officers, and they play this song. Like, it's, you know, it's totally cool. You know, nowadays. But I looked at the bottom of the ticket, and it said 50th District Court, Pontiac, Michigan. I'm like, oh, that's right here. I thought this had been shared 7,000 times. I thought this was some like national meme.
Oh, wow.
Out there. But I'm like, 7,000 shares. That's millions and millions of people saw this. So I saw 50th District Court. I'm like, that's right here. So I reach out to the guy. I say, hey,
so you don't know him. You just reached out to the guy?
Yeah, I found him on Facebook. So I put it in there. I go, somebody find me him. My followers are great. They find me things. But I reach out to him. I go, hey, you know, I'm sure people have offered you to pay your ticket or like whatever. I'm like, but I'm a lawyer, and I will take your case the entire way through trial for free.
Pro bono.
No matter what happens. Like, this is stupid. You have First Amendment right, and let's stick it to him.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. And so tell us about the case and kind of what happened.
Yeah. So the facts of what happened was a Oakland County sheriff had somebody pulled over at a gas station, and my client pulled into the same gas station, and he was on the other side of the same pump, and he was playing the song, you know, Fuck the Police from his car. And this is all we have: the security camera footage from the gas station, then we have the body camera from the officer. So my client, you know, gets out of his car. I guess he leaves it running, and he goes inside to buy cigarettes or whatever from the gas station. Comes back and sits in his car, and the officer leaves his original police stop, walks over to him.
So the officer wasn't even there for your client.
No,
he was doing something else.
He had another man pulled over for whatever that ticket was.
So like the client wasn't pulled over for like violating the law himself. He just was getting gas.
And by the way, he's driving like a 2002, like he's not in there with subwoofers and.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah. So
was it like vibrating the side of the...
So that's what they wrote it as, is like a music too loud. It's like, and, you know, you're in Pontiac. Like, people are bumping rap music all the time. That's why he had nothing. It was a stock, like, old Honda or something.
Yeah.
No speaker systems, nothing. So the officer stops what he's doing on his legit traffic stop, comes over to my client, and he's like, hey, like, you think people want to hear that type thing? My client, you know, like what? Like, I'm just playing music. And they kind of go back and forth, and he ends up writing him a misdemeanor. So not just like a ticket, like you know, you don't use you speed. It's a civil infraction, right? Punishable by maybe points on your license.
Pay a fine.
They wrote him for a crime, that he's a criminal, that up to 93 days in jail could happen to this man as a maximum
for playing music, for
amplified sound. Yes,
that's insane. And so he's now facing
93
jail
days in jail.
time, and a record for the rest of his life.
Yes. Well, yes. But what is nice is that, you know, when I saw that they had the box misdemeanor checked, because if they just wrote him a ticket, you know, I wouldn't have necessarily jumped in. But the fact that they charged him with a criminal offense now gives him the right to a jury trial, and he can sit on his rights and say jury trial, and that's essentially what we did. We actually tried to get him to very reasonably dismiss, which they wouldn't. I mean, it's clear as day First Amendment case. You know, you can say F-bombs and fuck the police, and
yeah, you can. There's cases that say
yes.
So look, we're not average. We're not saying that you should go around saying that to the police, because it's bad things can happen. But there's a difference between what you are legally have a constitutional right to do and what's polite or what's, you know, in a dainty world we might like. And, you know, Voltaire said, I may disagree with what you say, or I may not like with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And the First Amendment protects our speech, whether you like it or not, and whether you like what somebody has to say or not, but they have a right to say it. And that includes playing a music that you like that criticizes the police or criticizes the government, because you can't start drawing lines or it gets real dangerous, because then who's controlling what you say? There's also a case where a guy flipped off the bird to a police officer, and that is protected speech too. You can't arrest someone for doing that. So you took this to a jury trial?
Yeah, I'd like to say they took it to a jury trial.
Okay, good.
Remember,
good point.
we have no burden. We have no burden of proof.
So the prosecutor, who's hired with our tax dollars, brought a misdemeanor charge, impaneled a jury of citizens who had to take off work and come into court.
Yeah.
And what did they say? Tell us about the trial.
Before the trial, I'm very very online. I made a Facebook event for the trial, and I said rap music's not a crime.
Yeah.
Made it public, shared it to my followers. It starts building steam. The prosecutor, again with our tax dollars, files like a 35-page motion to close the trial. To have this,
to have a secret trial.
You have a constitutional right to a public hearing. It's a foundational in the United States.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't know that. You have a right to go into any courtroom to see a public trial. Public trials are a cornerstone of our justice system because a lot of people don't are before, like in England, they had like a star chamber, which was a secret trials, and you can't examine what happened. Right. So you can't, or in Russia, like the Politburo, right? You have secret trials that the public can't see. They can do whatever they want.
Right. And there's exceptions, so if there's a child victim, a very heinous something, and they don't even close the whole trial, but they'll like close
just the little portion.
They'll close their testimony.
Yeah. Or like the nuclear test codes or something.
This prosecutor filed a motion to close the doors, that nobody was allowed to witness what they were going to do to this man.
That's crazy.
And
simply because what? They didn't want the public to see?
They said that that people in there could be disturbing or whatever. I just made an invite to the general public. And I've also filed a motion to dismiss off the bat saying First Amendment, like there's no case in controversy here. Like he had no loudspeakers. This is purely because of, if he was playing, Katy Perry instead of NWA.
Or Mozart's Symphony or something, right?
Right. At the same volume, would he have gotten the ticket? The judge shut down the First Amendment argument. She also said that I wasn't allowed to mention the First Amendment in the trial or I could be held in contempt.
Oh,
so I was like really pushing
horrible.
that. I'm like, well, this is, but whatever. We didn't need to do that. So she declines the motion to her credit. But by the way, one thing I do is I always like to double down when the government's wrong. So when they filed the motion to close the trial, I posted it on Facebook.
Yeah.
And
See, this is what I'm talking about, man. You are a courageous dude. A lot of lawyers would they don't want to rock the boat,
sure,
right? Because I bet it sounds like that prosecutor didn't like you very much or held it out, but you're defending people's rights. It's hard to defend people's rights,
Yeah, it's it goes to the end of the story actually, but when I took their motion and put it online and put it in the group, the attendance of the event doubled. And it got even more attention and national attention. So I'm like, hey, like you should probably stop, just take the L. And but no, the government again, they have no consequences. So why it's not like the prosecutors, anything to lose or the police have anything to lose. So,
and just so people know too, it is impossible to sue a prosecutor. You cannot sue a prosecutor for doing almost anything except like there's like 3 things and they're like really hard. But other than that, they could even charge you with something they know is false and you can't sue.
Yeah, I see it all the time. So we go to jury trial and our whole side of the courtroom is full, people standing.
No way.
So I mean,
so the judge did not close the courtroom?
Did not close the courtroom.
Okay,
and
good.
We doubled down on the event. So our whole side of the courtroom is full. And then I guess they got like one like nice little lady from the city to like show up on their side. She's just like sitting there like
why am I here?
Yeah, and I talked to her like, you should be on our side. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So we had the police take the stand, who's the police officer, and they had, I guess, probably one of my favorite moments to this day on just like roasting somebody on cross exam. So I get the officer on the stand and I'm asking him questions and all that, and I get him to admit, I go, so it was the word fuck that bothered you, right? Because it's not the word the or police, right? It's the word fuck. Yes. He says yes. I'm like, okay, and nobody should have to hear that, right? Right. And he agrees to all this. That it was because of the word fuck, and you're in your public there's the women and children shouldn't have to hear this.
Right? Yeah.
Well, under the Freedom of Information Act, we got the video from his original traffic stop of when he was there pulling the first man over. And I go, can we please put up this exhibit? Put it to 20 minutes and whatever seconds, And the officer comes back with the ticket, and he goes to the man. He goes, I'm not going to fuck with you that bad. I wrote you for, I wrote you, he gave him a reduction on the ticket. He goes, hey, I'm not, he's like, oh, it's your lucky day. I'm not going to fuck with you that bad.
So he's just saying that to just some random civilian.
Yeah. And I'm just, and I go, pause. And I just like, look it up. I'm like, what did you say? What was that word that you used?
What did the jury look like?
Oh, they gasped, that was like, just like the look on their face, like shaking their heads.
Yeah.
Done. Right. And, so I go in, I'm like, did Oakland County Sheriff train you to speak that way or whatever? And the prosecutor jumps up, objections, throwing her papers, not literally, but
yeah.
It was done.
And not guilty.
So we did get the not guilty, but what I told, and I've said this in a couple different cases, but I like to tell the jury that I go, listen, you can take as much time as you want to deliberate. You can take hours, you can take days. But if you think what they did was wrong, if you think that the government overstepped their boundaries, I ask you to come back, to go around the table, but to come back with the quickest not guilty that they've ever seen. And it was, I think, 6 minutes.
No way.
Something. It's
That's pretty damn good.
They went around the table one time and said, yeah.
And so what a waste of taxpayer money.
Yeah.
And, this poor guy had to go through this. And what's really scary to me, Nick? What if you wouldn't have stepped in pro bono on this case because you believed in it? Because a lot of people don't get legal representation on something like this that they deserve. You know what I mean?
I hear you. I mean, what they would have done is either the guy would have walked in, they either would have tried to stick it to him if he wouldn't have apologized or something and bent the knee to the government. If he would have went in there and bent the knee and begged, they probably would have, okay, here's your civil infraction, pay a fine of $150 or something. But if he would have stood his ground personally, they would have said no deal, jury trial. And then if convicted, he could be on probation for a year. So that's like the snowballing effect. So if you get put on probation for something silly, then okay, you get pulled over or something, or you get in a fight or with your girlfriend or a friend or something, and now you violated probation. Now you have a new crime, and all that, and plus the criminal record that you talk about. But,
yeah, that's horrible. There's a famous case up north. I don't know if you remember this. It was a while back, but these obscenity laws are a little weird. There was some guy in a canoe who was going down the river. Did you hear about this case? It's like a famous Michigan case. Some guy was going down the river up north in a canoe by himself in the middle of the woods, and the canoe flipped over, and the guy started swearing oh, this canoe, F this canoe and this GD canoe.
Yeah.
And apparently there was a police officer or a DNR officer or something who heard it, and they charged the guy with obscenities in the middle of the woods, dude, on a canoe. And that's just wrong, I think.
It's victimless crimes.
Victimless
and
crimes.
And that's one reason why. Don't get me wrong. I can't stand actual people who hurt other people, people who rob, steal, defraud. If those were our laws, I would be a great prosecutor, because I can't stand people that hurt others.
Yeah.
And just cause chaos in our society. But I am defending people from victimless crimes, I would say, almost the majority of the time.
That's just scary and waste. I mean, imagine all those resources for something else. And people, it's horrible. What about, and by the way, I've seen, because I do the civil aspect, right? And we're working on a civil case together, which we can talk about. But, what I see them do a lot is because they know that there could be a civil case when the cops screw up, they'll try to make some charges stick, even if they're just minor charges.
Yeah.
So then they can say, look, he was convicted.
Yep.
Right? I mean, we have a case where we might as well go talk about it right now. Larry White. Okay. This is a case that our officers are working on together. You handled the criminal case. This was all over the news. This was on the front page, I think, of the Detroit News and everything. Tell the viewers a little bit about poor Larry White.
Yeah, this was a heinous video. The whole, thank God for the body cameras.
Oh my God.
It should be, and by the way, it should be mandatory.
I agree.
Nationwide. They also shouldn't be allowed to turn them off.
Yeah.
When they mute and say, all right, so how do we get this right?
How do we cover up this evidence? Yeah.
Yeah, which happens all the time. So poor Larry White, man in his 70s, married, grandchildren, beautiful family.
Army veteran.
No criminal record, CPL holder.
Just kind of like a God-fearing American,
Normal guy. And I guess the house next door, a man moved in who was just renting it, and no judgment, but basically he looked like Post Malone without the money.
Yeah.
He's a white dude. He's got the face tats. I wouldn't hire him.
Yeah, right.
He wouldn't be working at my front desk or anything.
Right.
Kind of rough people next door, and the kids, Larry White offered them ice cream. Okay.
Just like the neighborhood,
and like when I was a kid, that was normal too. Like, people, it's a different world now, but you go meet your neighbors, Mr. Larry, Mr. Bob, whatever.
Yeah.
You hang, you go.
And just so you know, Larry's like not a weirdo either.
He's
not like some creepy old guy.
No.
He was just like the nice neighbor.
guy.
He had lived there like his whole life, I think.
Lived there his whole life. Married, family guy.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I guess it was the kids. So the mom and dad were home, but it was like the mom's, either her sister or a friend that was supposed to be watching the kids.
And they weren't watching the kids.
So I guess they come over and they get ice cream, and he gives them the ice cream, and they leave, and it's all on the Ring cameras. They're like, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Larry. Bye." Like,
yeah,
bye, kids. And I guess the person who was supposed to be watching the kids wasn't. So the kids, being kids, came back like, "Can we have more ice cream?" And Larry's like, "Oh, sure, kids." Gives them another ice cream, and I guess through the telephone game or miscommunication, or maybe people are doing bad things. The girlfriend or sister, she's like, can't find the kids for like a second. So she goes to the mom. She's like, oh, they went next door. Then the mom goes to the dad and amps him up. And she's like, he tried to kidnap our kids. like the most ridiculous escalation. So Post Malone comes over to our client's house and, like banging on the door, like, get out here, I'll fucking kill you. Like, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And Larry's like, I told him if he was actually lawfully allowed to brandish at that point. He denies the whole thing, which is fine. But Larry basically tells him to get out of there. And neighbor Post Malone calls the police and says that my neighbor just pointed a gun at me and threatened to kill me.
Yeah, which we don't even believe is true whatsoever in any way.
Which there's no evidence of that. He wasn't able to describe the firearm or anything.
Yeah.
And even for argument's sake, if you're at your house and someone's in your home and somebody is banging on your door, a quarter of your or half your age, threatening to kill you, you could probably have a little show of force at that point.
Yeah.
So the police come there, and I guess it was reported to the police as like a potential kidnapping, felonious assault, right? So the police get there, and they're not acting like anything urgent is happening.
Yeah,
right?
and the kids are safe.
And the kids are in front of and I had when I cross-examined the officer in the stand, I'm like, so you're a pretty aware person, right? Like you're trained to know your surroundings.
The kids are right
They're right in front of them.
Like
they're
eating ice cream, chilling, like waving. Like happy as happy can be.
They're right there. So they know that there's no kidnapping in progress. Just how they tried to play it a little bit. So they talk to neighbor, mom, and then one of the officer goes over to Larry's next door, and he knocks on the door, police, and Larry's right there, answers the door. He's within the door frame.
In his own house.
Not stepping out. And they're like, where's the gun? Where's the gun? And Larry's like, and this is all on body camera. Larry's like, well, we're right here. He's like, come out. He's like, I'm good. I'll talk to you right here. Do you have, they're like,
very respectful, very nice.
No, you're not shouting.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I'm good. I will speak to you, but I'll talk to you right here. And they're like, get out. He's like, do you have a warrant? No, they don't have a warrant. And then they're like, well, come out right now or we will take you out, basically. And Larry's just...
And it all happened very quickly.
Well, they're like, give him that like 1 second to make a decision. And then they grab him. And Larry's like holding onto the doorway, trying to keep himself in the house. And, these are two like big, much younger police officers.
There was a lot of cops that like bum rushed
It started
in the
with
house.
two. So it was two on the porch. and Larry's holding himself into the house, trying to be prevented from being pulled out, and they're grabbing at him, and they eventually just tackle him into the house, both these officers, and it's just pure chaos. Like if this was your father or your grandfather, like it's just like, oh my God, like
in his own house.
What are you doing?
For giving kids ice cream
Yes.
who didn't have the best home
no
life,
search
it
warrant.
appears.
He asserted his rights. He asked for a warrant. He wasn't even resisting or saying F you or
yeah.
He's nothing. He did everything perfect.
But it gets worse. It gets
far
worse.
Far worse. Yeah. So the officers, they tackle him into the house, and these are big guys, and they got him on the ground. You know, they're holding him down, and they're like, hit him with the taser, hit him with the taser. And he's like, no. Larry can't even. He's trying to get out the words, I have a pacemaker, or he's trying to get out the words, I have a heart problem. He goes,
yeah.
And he goes like, I have a heart problem. They just keep stun gunning him, hitting him with the taser. And he's like just begging for them to stop. And they're like, stop resisting. He's like, I'm not resisting. And 2 more cops come in. So, you're at 4 on 1 at this point. And that would be bad enough. And it would be bad enough for an officer to escalate to deadly force at that point. If an officer took his firearm and put it to his head, that would have been bad. Right. But what happened?
The dude's on the ground getting tased in his own living room in the middle of the day.
He's been subdued. There's no chance that he's a threat to any police officer.
Yeah, this old
guy. What one of the officers decides to do is that he took Larry's gun off of Larry and put it to the back of Larry's head.
The officer takes Larry's own gun off of his waist.
Yes.
Holds it. The steel of the gun to his head.
Yes, and
is pointing it at his head.
He's pointing it, and
and that's an unfamiliar gun too. This is crazy.
It's first of all, you never point, you never point a weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy. Not only does he do that, but he's flailing around like you see it, and then he like kind of like flags his whole body like that, and this. He doesn't. Police officers train with weapons, and they train with their handgun. They train with rifles. When you pick up another gun, you don't know that gun. It could have malfunctioned. It could have been anything. It could have.
He doesn't know the trigger weight.
It could have had a special trigger. It could have been anything. He could have splattered this guy's head on the ground in
his own house
over nothing.
For being a good neighbor.
Right, and thank God that wasn't the case. But when you're watching this video, it is hard to watch. It's hard to stomach. And Judge Kwame Rowe in Oakland County, when we got.
So they charged him. So
they charged him.
They charged him with what? What did they charge Larry with?
Felonious assault and resisting arrest.
Felonious assault on who? The police?
The neighbor.
On the neighbor. Okay, that's ridiculous.
Without any proof of that. But then resisting the police
in his own house.
So that they grab the gun, they're flailing around, but they're like almost like they had done this before. They're like, the one guy's like, "Stop! You went for your gun. Like, why'd you go for your gun, you asshole?" And the other officer's like, Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah, you went for why'd you go for your gun? You fucking stupid. And like, and the whole thing's on.
That's what's so amazing.
4K body cam.
Thank God everything is on this 4K body cam, because not for a single second did Larry ever even intimate that he would go for his gun. That was just a bunch of BS.
Right. And just the way that they all kind of jumped on the bandwagon, like, he went for his gun.
Yeah.
Because I guess that means at that point, the officers can do anything in this country.
They knew they were in trouble. And so that's almost like falsification of evidence. You know what I mean? That's very scary.
Yeah.
So what happened? So they charged him, and then we have a whole nother prosecution of a citizen who gave the neighbor kid some ice cream and got beat up by the police, which, by the way, he needs like neck surgery. I mean, he's all messed up.
Yeah.
They busted his rotator cuff. I mean, he's messed up.
Yeah. Well, it's like you say about, suing the police. It's for a judge. So we basically, it got to circuit court, and we filed a motion to dismiss based on, basically it's that you're allowed to resist an unlawful arrest. So, if a police officer starts attacking you and you're walking your dog, you can stand up for yourself. You can defend yourself. So, but because the arrest or the order has to be lawful. And what the basis was is that, hey, they entered this man's home without a search warrant. There was no exigent circumstances. There's no, woman screaming. There's no like flushing the evidence situation, that they absolutely needed a search warrant or search or arrest warrant in the situation
right.
to enter the home. So even if they found that, so basically even if whether he resisted or not is irrelevant, because there was no.
They
lawful
shouldn't have done that in the
basis.
first place.
There was no
right.
there was no lawful basis. So Judge Kwame Rowe, after put a couple officers on the stand, it's great testimony for the civil case.
So he had was it a preliminary examination or what was it? Or
That was in district. So we had the prelim. It got bound over at the prelim because you had to file in criminal law. You file the motions to suppress evidence and do all that at the circuit court level.
Okay.
If it's a felony, all the felonies get kicked up.
And they charged him with a felony.
Yeah, well, it was a 2, and they both got bound over.
Which Larry could have spent more than a year in jail, right?
I think they actually upped it to I think they added charges because they found the prosecutor, they like to add, if you hold the exam, because some prosecutors don't like to work, if you hold the exam and make them work, they'll add charges. They say, well, actually, he resisted more than one officer. So then when we went up, he was facing multiple felonies.
That's ridiculous.
To even start with.
So it's like a punishment. Like, don't challenge us or else we're going to charge you with more crimes.
Happens all the time.
That's scary, Nick.
Yeah. No, so they'll say, well, there was 2 officers there, so now it's 2. Or in a drug case, they'll be like, well, you had 2 pills, so now it's 2 felonies. Even though a single prescription is like 30 of something.
That's ridiculous. So what happened? So you put the officers on the stand.
Yeah. And they're making these statements of like, well, we just got tunnel vision. And like, I set them up pretty good with the whole putting the gun to someone's head. And I'm like, well, it was for officer safety, right? Well, wouldn't you just slide it across the room or hand it to another officer who's not tackling Larry and say, make this safe, unload it, get rid of the ammo, but put it to the back of the guy's head. So Judge Kwame Rowe was astounded at this. He said, I think we had to wait for the opinion, but while we were waiting for the opinion, which we won, ultimately the case dismissed. But he told the prosecutor, Miss, you need to show this to the Madison Heights chief of police, and he needs to see what his officers are doing. He said, this is the most heinous video I've ever seen.
Wow. And now we have a civil. So you won the criminal case. Yes. Good. You did a great job. And now we have the civil case, which again, had he lost that criminal case, the civil case would have probably been been nothing. Right.
Because they would have said, well, no, the police, they did their job and they have discretion. They're allowed to subdue criminal suspects. Yeah,
that's horrible. That's horrible. So we're looking forward to, continuing that. It's going to be a long fight.
Yeah.
But, all right. So tell us about some other crazy cases. What about, I heard you had this case about somebody got charged with a crime for warming their car up in winter. Is that real?
That was, yes. It wasn't a crime. This was another social media thing brought where my followers will send it to me. But a man in Roseville, Michigan, was charged with a ticket for $127. Not a crime, but a ticket for warming his car up in his own driveway in January. And for your viewers,
wait a minute. I mean, dude, we have remote start on our cars for a reason, don't we?
Well, he was
here in Michigan.
We do. So he had a very old vehicle that did not have. He was definitely of lower income means. He was in his own driveway and he warmed his car up. And for people who don't live in Michigan that watch your show, it's free. Everybody warms their car up before you get in. And I mean, you have to. I mean, you're gonna die.
Yeah, it's too cold. And you need to get the windshield if you don't have a garage, like a heated garage. Yeah. You got to get the windshield defrosted.
Yeah. So he went back in the house and he got his 2-year-old who had cerebral palsy, bundled up to leave the house. That's what he was doing with his, couple of minutes he was away from his car. Police officer drives by, sees the car, walks up to it, doesn't even knock on the door or anything, and just writes a ticket for leaving a vehicle running unattended.
What?
Which the police do all the time, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a crime or a infraction that they can charge you with.
They say it's to prevent people from stealing cars. So it's like if you're on the side of the road, or like if you just leave your car running in like the Walmart parking lot and walk away from it, like, okay, it could be unsafe.
But was this guy's own house?
Well, our main argument was, well, the traffic rules don't apply. He's in his driveway.
It was in his own driveway.
You don't need a driver's license. And if you're on private property, the whole rules of the road apply to public roads.
Yeah,
in areas of the public.
It was in his own private property,
in his own driveway.
Oh my gosh! So what happened with this case?
So that was another thing. This was actually my first media case ever. I had to be practicing a couple months, and again, I reached out to him. So I saw it. I'm like, hey, I'm sure people will pay your ticket. He had people reaching out. I'm like, but again, we'll take it all the way. Let's make an example of this. It's stupid. And we did. We went to we went to court in the district court, and basically the officer was there, and I asked the officer, I'm like, well, this is for community safety, right? Because somebody could steal the car. He's like, yeah. And I always like back the officer into what I want him to say first. And like, well, did you then knock on the door? No. Like, well, did you turn the car off and take the keys out? No. Like, so is it safe that you left the vehicle running unattended, in fact? And of course, the objection, everybody gets, the prosecutor jumps up and down. But the judge at the district court level sided with the police. He said, no, this is legit.
No way.
Yep. So I had to file an appeal. So I appealed it to the Macomb County Circuit Court level. It's like very early on. I'd never done an appeal before or anything. And basically saying like, hey, no, that this is an abuse of discretion, that the law doesn't apply because he's in his own driveway. And there was no exception for remote start. There's not even, I think there was an exception at the time for police and emergency vehicles. But if you had a nice car that you could just remote start and it's nice and warm, like you would, it's a misdemeanor, or not it's a ticket.
Infraction.
It's an infraction. So we actually got this propelled, it was already in motion, but Governor Snyder at the time changed the law that now you can warm your car up in the state of Michigan.
Well, shit, man. I've been warming my car up for a long time, and that's crazy. I didn't know. I had no idea.
And what I also, just to make things to double make things right, I found I put out a post on my Facebook asking if anybody would donate to this man to have an automatic starter put in his car, and we had a local car audio shop completely hook him up with a remote start and all that, so he could now warm his car up, so he could ask the state, like, please, may I be warm?
Yeah.
If it pleases the crown, may I be warm when I travel the roads?
Yeah, that's ridiculous, man. Some of this stuff is so petty. What about have you ever had any cases involving like babies?
Yeah, I mean, well, you're referring to the case with Jonathan Vanderhagen out of Macomb County.
Yeah, so correct? Tell us about this.
This was a seriously screwed up case.
Because this made news. This was like big in the news, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. This was really, really sad case. This was a father, and it started off in family court, which is like, I'll do the criminals and the insurance companies. Like, I can't deal with the baby mamas. I can't deal with the drama. I'd rather deal with the worst criminal or the biggest insurance company.
We've talked about family law a lot on this show, and like, I don't know how people do it because it is so draining.
I like solutions.
Yeah.
I like to solve a problem and move on. I don't want to just, even if someone's throwing you money, like, I don't want to fight just for the sake of fighting.
Right.
I don't got time for this. But it started in family court, and he was telling the judge that, my baby mama is like, she's bad. She does drugs. She's not good. Like, I'm afraid for the safety of my child. The child. So
that's your client.
Yes. The father. And I forgot what the baby, the baby had something where he had to wear like a helmet as like a infant.
Oh yeah. It's called like, I forget what the technical name is, but it's like malchrondium. The skull doesn't fully encase the brain, I think, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
There's probably several things, and it's been so long I can't remember specifically, but lo and behold, the baby died in the mother's possession, supervision, and there was never any follow-up. There was never any autopsy. There was no charges pressed. There's not even
what
like
would the baby die of? Did they even investigate? That's bizarre.
Yeah, it is messed up.
Because they were separated.
Yeah.
So they had like be with dad sometimes, mom sometimes.
Yes.
The baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was, begging the judge, like, this is not a fit mother. And
before that happened.
Yeah, that's why.
And I feel like be beside myself.
Yeah, of course. And I feel like in family court, I feel like it's not 50-50 men and women. I feel like there's a lot of benefit put on. You have to basically be a really, really bad mother to have your kid taken, where if you're on the father's side, geez, you could do anything and in front of the wrong judge and get your parental rights taken.
And so the dad was saying like, there's she's bad. She's going to hurt the kids.
She's irresponsible.
Yeah.
She does drugs. She's irresponsible. baby dies in possession. He doesn't say anything for a long time, grieving on his own. And about 6 months plus after this, the baby dies, he starts going to Facebook, and his outlet. He does things artistically. He makes memes and saying things. He had like a game of Monopoly, saying the family court's a game. Like they'll play a game with your life.
He's put this on Facebook.
On Facebook. So
he's criticizing the government, essentially.
Criticizing the government and specifically the judge.
Right.
And he found, I won't name her, but he found her Pinterest page from when she was in college, and it's all this like memes, like dissing men and like men are stupid and like really dark stuff and like weird stuff. And he took that whole thing and puts it up on Facebook as like a 34 image Facebook post. Right. The judge, talking about people in power get special treatment. She makes a phone call, and he has 2 U.S. Marshals show up at his house.
No way. And just so that people know, U.S. Marshals are like, they guard the federal courthouse. Yeah. They're basically federal agents, right?
Serious stuff.
I mean, yeah, serious. You do not want federal agents of any kind showing up at your house unless, they're there to like tell you won the lottery or something, which good luck.
And, it's just the disparity. If you... I think most people have had somebody talk bad about them online at some point.
Me, I've had people. I'm sure people talk. People have who are watching this are going to comment. Cases Gone Wild sucks, and I've had people all kinds. Of course, anytime you're a public figure, you need to expect that you got to have some criticism.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't like you all the time.
But you can't even. You, Jon Marko, can't send you federal agents to someone's house who's talking smack about you.
No.
Okay.
No.
And neither could I. And if somebody, they'd be like, if you call the police, like, oh, my girlfriend's sharing my old Facebook posts on my Pinterest posts on Facebook, they'd be like, that's not a crime, sir.
Yeah.
But because of her position of power, she was able to send marshals to his house. So they go, they snatch him up. They charge him with malicious use of a telecommunication device.
Being the internet?
So anything,
or computer or something?
So internet, phone, anything like that. It's a really broad charge, and if you use intentionally using threatening, harassing, molesting language with the intent to harass, another person. There are First Amendment implications of this. They have to show a true threat. Number one, you could tell somebody F you, but if you're like, I'm gonna effing kill you.
Right.
Right. There's I tried to do a First Amendment motion to dismiss, fails at that point. But
so he got charged. Did it go in front of a different judge or the same judge or what?
The judge, well, he was charged, and he was charging Clinton Township. And it was in Judge Lucido, I believe. And what happened was he was put on bond, and he said part of his bond conditions, you can't talk about the judge anymore. You can't post anything about the judge. And he didn't, but he went home and continued to make art and memes about the system in general.
Like what? Like give our viewers like an example so we know what
just like the Monopoly example.
Like the system's corrupt.
The system's corrupt, that it's a game, that your life is a game to them. We still have all this. This has been years, but nothing threatening, nothing like that. Nothing could be even remotely construed as a threat or anything. But he went home and just continued the post. I mean, this is a grieving father, right? And then they go and grab him again, and I think his bond was like, he paid his bond, it was like $2,500, like 10% or something. They make his bond $250,000 cash.
No way.
They said you violated bond conditions, $250,000. And who's got that, right? You can't even pay him.
So he had to go. So our viewers know, bond is you have to go to jail unless you can post.
Yeah.
Bond.
So bond. So the government can keep you in jail. Even everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but the government can keep you in jail while a case is being figured out. And most time people get personal bond. If it's your first DUI and you're no criminal history, they look at, are you a threat to the community, and are you a flight risk? So do you have a private jet? Is this your fifth assaultive crime? They look at that. This is nothing like that with this guy. They make his bond $250,000, And I filed a motion saying, well, he followed the bond condition. The bond condition wasn't don't post, it was don't post about the judge specifically. And that was denied. And, this guy basically, in honor of his son, he sat in jail for over 2 months.
No way.
Waiting for trial.
And so did you try the case or what happened?
Yeah, so it was another thing where I'd put it on Facebook, made it a public thing. It was on the news as well.
Jury trial?
Jury trial.
So he was facing a misdemeanor?
1 year misdemeanor.
Okay.
So he
could go to jail for up to a year.
Yeah.
That's still scary, man.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't want to go to jail for like a week.
Yeah.
It's scary.
And, this guy is basically it's just his son. He's like, I'm doing this for my son, that I will not take a deal.
No way. Did they offer deals?
I don't remember. I don't think that they did, but they may have like just before trial.
So what happened? You went and you tried the case?
So this was another case, full courtroom, standing room only, people there, people from like the prosecutor's office, a bunch of defense attorneys were there. We picked the jury because really this was just a case of of power and privilege versus just some guy. And we weren't allowed to bring in all this evidence, like those Pinterest posts. Couldn't bring them in, right? That's prejudicial.
But how are you supposed to present the case without them knowing? They say
it's irrelevant. So it was a tough one because like the prosecutor could, again, they were pretty much allowed to bring anything that they wanted to bring, and we couldn't really rip into this judge. We wanted to show the jury just the type of person she was, and we weren't really able to do that. But the prosecutor did screw up, and we got a nice piece of information in there. Our whole argument is that there was no threat here, that you're just like the F the police case, like you're allowed to say bad shit, and especially about the government.
Yeah,
that our elected officials and the government. That's what our founding fathers put into place, that like you're allowed to
criticize the government, even if people don't like it, or it may be distasteful or whatever.
Yeah,
you don't have to be polite as
right.
long as you're not like physically hurting somebody or a true threat.
But there was an exhibit, and basically within the exhibit had one of the judge's posts where she saw some like commercial on TV she didn't like, and she like made it all about her, and like it was just the most like ridiculous, like where there's nothing to be offended about, and she like became offended, made it all about her, posted it on the internet for like attention. And under the rule, they tried to object. I'm like, hey, under the rule of completeness, you admitted the exhibit, we stipulated to it. So
yeah, it's in evidence.
So it was like a post. It was like a post within a post, and because it was in the exhibit, we were able to bring that up and blow it up and say, okay, so
the judge came and testified and everything.
So I had to put
this is a pretty heavy case then. Yeah. I mean,
so a circuit court judge came and was subpoenaed and got to take the stand. So I had to, this is somebody you usually call your honor.
Yeah, and you had to cross-examine her.
Yeah.
Wow. So what ended up happening in that case?
Not guilty.
Guilty.
And another quick one too. I did the same thing. That was actually the first time I did it.
Wow.
Where full room, and then just the closing. I mean, people are crying. I mean, like when this man was testifying, I was like,
your client?
Yeah, I mean, he's crying. Just like this man talking about his son dying and like the system failing him, and like now look what they've done to me. And we actually got to tell the jury that they've locked him up for over 2 months over this already.
Oh, that's such a tragic.
Oh my God,
case.
it was tough to even. My voice was definitely cracking on my just direct exam of him. He was our witness.
Did you talk to the jury afterwards on this case?
I don't remember.
Yeah, that's a crazy case.
I think they left, but in the closing arguments, I compared up that our First Amendment is here. It's like the Queen of England, right? That's why our founding fathers put this, is so you could say things about people in power. And if you went to the police for the same thing, would you have been given federal agents in a jury trial and all this stuff? So yeah. I asked them to come back with the quickest not guilty that they've seen, and it was under 15 minutes.
Wow. That's crazy though. I mean, this guy's whole life's kind of hanging in the balance there.
Yeah.
After his son had passed away. What a tragic case.
There's a picture. I'll send it to you before the verdict.
Yeah, let's show our viewers so they can see the picture of this.
So he's standing up like praying, and I have like my head down like that.
Yeah,
it's in my office.
You can see right now. We're gonna show it to them. This is wow. Well, thank you, Nick, for standing up. It's very hard. These jobs are hard. as it is, but it's very hard to stand up to extremely powerful interests who can do things like threaten you with jail, threaten you with fines, send armed people who you can almost impossible to stop to your house for these types of things. And it's very scary. It's very scary to hear these stories because that's why, thank God, we have the Constitution and these rights, and thank God we have the 7th Amendment and the right to a jury trial. Because one thing that I've seen in you talking about this is the backdrop that protected these people is a jury, right? Mm-hmm. Because they didn't seem, except Kwame Rowe, who thank you, Judge Rowe, on the Larry White case, who's put a stop to it earlier.
Yeah.
But on these stories and these cases gone wild, it's the jury that kind of saved the day with you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, dude. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, keep up the good work, and
thank you.
It'll be interesting to see. We're going to be watching what happens with the primary and with the election process, and we wish you the best of luck. And I know that you'll fight for people's rights and our constitutional rights.
Thank you so much. Glad to be on.
All right, it's been another awesome episode of Cases Gone Wild, brought to you by Marko Law. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you or someone you know needs help or representation, please go to our website, www.markolaw.com, markolaw.com. You can submit right online or give us a call, 833-MARKO-LAW. That's 833-MARKOLAW.com. We'll help you. We'll get you to Nick Somberg over here to make sure that your rights are protected. Until next time, we'll see you in 2 weeks on another Cases Gone Wild.